There's also an interesting distinction um, within our title that I think is interesting to look at, because
Hmm.
one could read the title of today's show, Walking with Joy, as though
Hmm.
there's me and I'm walking with joy, and joy is this separate thing, and we're kind of walking together.
Well, I do actually think that because my sister-in-law's name is Joy, so
See,
sorry, I couldn't help myself.
hence the simple confusion, right?
Yeah,
Um,
you're right.
and I think it's funny uh, to think of it that way, but I think it's very common that we experience there's me and there's joy as this outer thing.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and I think that helps to lead to the, well, if I want joy, then I have to hold hands with joy, and then I get to do, like, if I do this, then joy will be with me.
Yeah.
And we can also hear the title of the show, Walking with Joy, like as though you walk with, like, now it gets wordy, but
It's
you,
ambiguous,
yes,
so it's tricky to talk about, but
from the poetic sort of view, walking with joy, it's as though joy is walking, uh, and that is what you are. So it's like you walking with the joy, not walking
it's
with, like, side by side with joy, but walking
it's
with joy.
almost like the joy is walking you, you know.
Yeah,
But it's yeah, it's more of a it's separate versus it's not separate, right? It's this
or the
external thing versus it's part of you. It's an essential part of ourselves that we've forgotten.
or the you that you associate yourself to be falls away, and joy is then the thing that's moving through the world.
Hmm. Yeah, I like that.
It's
The
it's it seems insignificant, but it's actually the experience of it is extremely different. It's
yeah,
the
yeah,
it's the difference between conditional and unconditional happiness, right?
sure.
Uh, so if I get the thing I want, then I'm happy, and I'm happy until I get bored with the thing, and then I'm like, well, I need a new thing because this thing's actually not that interesting anymore. And then we're in that cycle, right? What the Buddhists call samsara, when we're in this constant cycle of desire, and then it's the wanting of the thing is what's generating our movement, and the desire for, is the thing that's just out of reach, and then we get it and we have that juicy yummy uh, feeling, and then eventually that kind of wears off, and we're like, this actually isn't, I don't really want this anymore, and then we got to start the cycle again. It's like, well, what's the new thing I want, right?
Right. Yeah,
And
it's incredibly circular in
it's incredibly circular. Yeah.
in
And there's a completely different kind of happiness, just sticking in the realm of happiness, that
sure.
um, isn't conditional at all. And I think that's what we're trying to point towards today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like the poem says, it's do you think peace requires an end to war, or tigers eating only vegetables? You know, that's that same thing, is it's outside, and some things have to occur in order for that peace to exist.
Right. Right.
That's conditional.
Which is the
Like,
great illusion. Yeah.
yeah, and it's so beautifully put, like that. It's so beautifully put.
Yeah, that poem was just so spot on, I feel like. Um, nailed it. And that was about peace, right? That's the word that that poem used,
That's
right?
the word she's using.
I
Yeah,
think you and I, Harold, like you said, we could easily interchange peace with joy, with love. It's you've got those are like different flavors of ice cream. It's really the same thing at the heart of it, right?
hmm
Um, or different things you could make out of clay, but it's all clay. Um, but it's just yeah, there's conditional peace and love and joy, which they're not actually conditional. We've made them conditional in our mind, therefore we experience them as conditional. So they are conditional for us until we see that they don't have to be. and then we can have a different experience.
Well, we've set up our life as though our thought structure is what we are.
Sure, sure.
So if that's how we're living, then it is conditional because there are things that I like and things that I don't like. But
Yeah,
when we sink down, as the poem, invites us to do, sink down into our heart space, the identification with who we believe ourselves to be has a tendency to sort of soften or fall away. And then we
yeah,
actually get to become uh, the thing that we believe from the other space that we're trying to get. We become the joy, we become the peace, we become the love, and then we move. It animates this meat suit into our what we call our lives, right? But it's actually just it's just the universe unfolding itself in that way out into all that there is.
yeah. Harold, I really like that you brought up likes and dislikes, because my experience of myself personally and people I've worked with, people I've seen have transformative experiences like this that we're describing. Um, it's funny. We tend not to take our likes and dislikes as seriously as we once did, as we kind of embrace that part of ourselves that you're talking about. Um, they're still there, but there's not that same level of attachment to them. There's not that same level of condition to, an investment in them being this thing that means everything to me, right? Whether I get it or don't get it. Um, whereas before, that's the difference that makes the difference, right? Is, do I get what I want?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay, I get to be happy. No, not so much.
Not so
Um,
happy.
yeah, not so happy. But there's a real relationship shift with our likes and dislikes, with this deeper experience of um, an unconditional self and unconditional love. That it's just interesting to me that stuff, it doesn't go away. Like, I have preferences all over the place, right? But whereas maybe when I was younger, um, and didn't have quite as much a facility for this, uh, for me, not getting something I had my heart set on, which is a funny use of language there, um, was devastating, right? Uh, and now that can still occur, but it really never does to the same degree. Um, and it's just getting more and more in touch with that place, that not walking with joy, but walking with joy.